Okay. Hit the thing again, just for posterity.
Oh, again?
Yeah.
I shall call this meeting to order. ZBA Wildcat Tavern and Inn and Tavern, the Igloo reconstruction.
And if I just interrupt, we just want to make sure Stu's aware that to grant a variance, we need 3 positive votes, no matter how many people are here.
Okay.
So since we don't have 5 people here, you now need 3 out of 4. So a little bit harder struggle. And you have the ability, if you wish, to postpone. But
You know, I'm in here
Okay.
in good faith.
okay.
Okay, so I guess I was expecting some kind of presentation, but let me run through what your attorney has given us. The application for variance, facts supporting this request, granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest. The proposed reconstruction of the Igloo Cottage is located on private property behind the Wildcat Inn and Tavern. The Igloo is used as a private hotel rental and will continue as such. It is out of sight of the general public and will have no impact on the public interest. Any change to that
No.
statement? Fact number two, the spirit of the ordinance is observed because the spirit of this ordinance is observed in that we hope to gain approval to move the current structure 4 feet away from the current abutter property line, separating the Mason lot from the Wildcat Tavern lot. Currently, the back wall of the Igloo sits less than 12 inches from this line. Moving the building forward into the Wildcat lot will improve its current distance from the Mason boundary. No stream or body of water or public or private road will be impacted. Any change to that?
No, that's still accurate.
Number 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice because over the years the current Igloo Cottage has fallen into disrepair. The building was poorly constructed originally and these materials have slowly deteriorated with time. At this time, a portion of the floor has collapsed on the dirt foundation. Currently, the building's condition is such that we are reluctant to rent it to guests. Granting the variance would enable us to bring all aspects of the building up to modern codes and derive rental income from this property to assist in continued improvements to the overall property and business. Any change to that statement?
No, that's still remains accurate.
Actually, I got to finish that, I'm sorry. As the members of the ZBA will see from the attached drawings, Wildcat Inn and Tavern is situated on 2 lots. In addition to moving the Igloo Cottage forward 4 feet, we would also like to increase the footprint length by 10 feet to help make it a more spacious and desirable rental unit. In adding 10 feet in length to the building, the proposed new footprint would cross the boundary line of the second parcel. Accordingly, we would propose, as part of this process, combining of the 2 lots with the Town of Jackson's approval. This step would make this building more conforming. That has already been approved by the planning board.
Yes.
So legally, you have 1 lot, even though they probably have 2 different
Correct.
parcel names.
Correct.
Okay, so that's done. For the following reasons, the values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. Viewed from our abutter's property, the current Igloo Cottage would be considered a negative with respect to the Mason's property value. The building looks like a derelict structure. The planned improvements would move this building off their property line, I'd say off, but away from their property line, and transform the building in a beautiful vacation rental property. I didn't see that before. So. Any change to that statement?
No.
Other than not off their property line, but away from their property line. So I'll change that. Denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because the proposed use is in keeping with how the Igloo Cottage has been used for over 50 years. No impact as such on the public interest. The proposed use is reasonable in that we are not changing the use. We're only upgrading and improving the property so that it improves the overall property and our abutter's property. Keeping the building on the existing footprint would result in no improvement to the current setback. Furthermore, denial of the variance would make it difficult to improve this property as a rental property, remodeling this old building is not a viable financial option. I'm not sure that that line is. Any change to that?
No, that's still accurate.
For the board, denial of this variance would make it difficult to improve this property.
That's not quite right.
I'm not quite sure that's an argument.
Yeah.
Number 6, is any use of structure currently non-conforming? The building's use is conforming. The current location on the abutter's property line is non-conforming. Granting this variance would make a non-conforming structure less non-conforming. And I think we probably should add the fact that you've combined the properties, because that was non-conforming between the two. So additional information in conjunction with many conversations with Jackson's building inspector. We submit this application in good faith to the members of the ZBA. I've consulted closely with Kevin throughout this process. All required state and federal testing and procedures have been followed with regard to the testing for and disposal of any hazardous materials. Those documents have been attached. We don't have to know when we're out of the country. So we do have the asbestos report, asbestos mitigation. I guess if you have any further comments to make?
No, I think that's expresses our intention, our hope.
Okay.
You happy to field questions?
Any comments from the board?
Does it fall into our realm where it's gone from 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms? And as far as septic, is there the septic big enough to handle that 3rd bedroom?
Right. You know, we haven't done a septic study, but the igloo is always a 3rd bedroom. That is actually the part of the building that deteriorated the fastest. So when I referred to the floor collapsing in and of on itself, that actually was the 3rd bedroom. We just haven't been able to rent that as a bedroom in about 10 years. So we've sealed it off from the rest of the 2 bedroom and then just used it as storage in there.
You're
Not
actually,
that I'm,
go ahead.
not that I have concern about it, but I think one should recognize that even though the proposed new structure is 4 feet further back from the property line, so in that aspect, it's less non-conforming. It's 10 feet longer, so there's going to be there's a 10-foot portion that at least some portion of it will be, in the setback area, so that part is more non-conforming. On balance, I'm not particularly concerned, but it's...
Actually, if I understand you correctly, so our goal of moving it 4 feet off the Mason line is a little bit misleading because our property line actually, so if this is the...
Go ahead, go ahead, I'm sorry, I interrupted, but I just realized I might be wrong with what I just said.
Well, no, but it's not clear because there's an applied assumption that the lot is square and the lot's not square. So if this is Main Street and this is the igloo, and so if you're looking at the front of the igloo, this corner closest to the main inn, the Mason property is right here. The current igloo is actually the furthest away from the Mason property at that point. The property line narrows as it gets closer to the other side of the igloo. So our intent is to rotate it a little bit.
Oh, okay.
To move it further off of the point that it's closest to.
Well, that's not evident on this.
It's not clear on that, and,
Okay.
and that is where, because it looks more like it's a parallel line
Yeah.
to the back of the current igloo, and it creeps almost I don't know, maybe 6 inches to almost a foot closer as it draws
Mhm.
closer to this line. So we can pull it out a little bit without substantially changing the visible orientation of the building, but it moves the part that was closest to the mason line further off the mason line. And that's what actually moved it into our second lot, trying to extend it 10 feet and then rolling it forward a little bit is what allowed it to cross that.
And it reminds me of what I just realized is that second lot is also behind the Mason property.
Yeah,
So-
that's the lot that Frost
Yeah, so
subdivided.
Right,
basically their
right.
property
Years ago, yeah.
turns, the Mason property turns. And so had that line been straight, had that property line continued straight, then you'd have that 10-foot additional length that would be close to the property line, but it's not because the property line turns. I'm sorry.
Well, and this is the right-of-way that we and the Masons have granted Jackson Ski Touring.
Yeah.
So that right-of-way crosses right at that back
Mhm.
point. So it's actually a little bit further away from the right-of-way that we've granted to Jackson Ski Touring.
I don't have any questions.
No matter what you do in the village, you're between a rock and a hard place.
Is that an actual right-of-way? Because they have access to our property with trails, but they don't have a right-of-way to do it. So you.
I don't know if the right-of-way is the proper term. We've granted that.
I'm just curious.
We've granted that to
Easement.
Easement. in
It's an
perpetuity.
easement.
Yeah.
It's
We've
either-
granted the
it's
easement.
either-
So it's an
in
actual
perpetuity.
easement? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's either a
Because
permanent
they-
easement or
They just
annual.
said.
We've given it as a
Cross
permanent
out.
easement, so
Yeah,
you're right,
that's-
right-of-way is the wrong word.
Yeah.
When we bought it from Pam and Marty, it was not a permanent easement, but we just really believe in Jackson Ski Touring, so we granted a permanent easement.
Yeah, those trails, you could, if it's on you, because we have it go, the Whitney Trail goes across the back of our property.
Yeah.
You can close it at any time, and it's only good for winters, it's not for use in the summer.
And that's what we have there,
Yeah.
because we get the indemnification every year from them, so.
Yeah.
Somebody crushes their ankle on our shallow trails. Any comment from the building inspector?
I think just a quick comment. I think the increase in size of the building, and we're talking to the architect, and it has to do a lot with building codes. Because, I mean, the old structure, the stairs were steep. There wasn't really a landing at the top, or not the right amount of area, and same at the bottom. Now, the codes require at least 4 feet in front of the doorway for a landing at the top of the stairs, and same thing at the bottom, basically. And that whole staircase, because it's like, it goes up to a landing and turns and goes back up again, and it almost takes up probably 100, 120 square feet of the actual floor space in the building. So it's just because of, codes and everything else. And then the same thing with stairs being, the rise is not going to be over 7 3/4 or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
And the treads, the code's 10 inches, would probably be 11 or 12, not like, where it used to be
Would
very
that be-
small.
Would that be considered residential terms? I'm sorry, I'm stuck in Massachusetts.
Oh,
Go
no,
ahead.
that'd be commercial and
Oh, okay.
residential. Yeah, it's
Okay.
kind of a common thing with stairs.
Yeah.
I think in the commercial, they are going to require like railings on both sides, whereas
Oh, yeah.
residential, you only need it on one side.
Sure, yeah.
And just the other, I think the other fact is, here we have a commercial restaurant, bar, and some lodging or whatever, and he's got to compete with all these Airbnbs now. I just can't imagine how tough it is being a business person here down Main Street with commercial property and competing with all these Airbnbs and more regulations because, typical Airbnb doesn't have to be sprinklered, inspections and all that, where commercial property gets inspections, that's, it's building sprinklered, it's got to get tested every so many years, every year, and, it's a lot more, raise more income basically to have all that.
That may change in Jackson in the
So-
future too.
Well, I don't know.
But,
We need to have a conversation
Yeah.
about that, but,
so, but
It's
anyway,
not-
I'm all
not for
for this.
Yeah.
I think it's a great
but
idea.
you don't have any objections to
I do not.
what's happening
No.
here, so. Okay, so should we go through the whole rigmarole?
quickly.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, you're my coach.
You want me to, or? you
No.
do it? Go ahead,
Give me a try. Just
you try.
slap me silly if I get it
No, I
wrong. Okay. So, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interests. Do we have any thoughts on that from the other members? Any
I mean,
objections?
to translate the two criteria we often use are, would the variance alter the essential character of the neighborhood?
No.
And would the variance threaten the public health, safety, or welfare? And, in both cases, I think the answer is no, and that both of those that would apply to both your first test as well as your second test.
So, do we want to
Go ahead and vote.
do a vote on that? So, are we in agreement that with number one, granting variance would not be contrary to the public interest? All those in favor?
Aye.
Spirit of the ordinance is observed because, well, I'm reading it off of this, but,
The same two questions I mentioned.
and, sirs?
Raising my
Granting,
hand up.
granting the variance would do substantial justice. I don't think that, it would.
I'd interpret that as saying that any loss to the individual here is not outweighed by gain to the general public. Or the negative here is if we, to grant the variance, we have to make the observation that any public benefit here is not outweighed by the loss to the individual in not being able to rebuild this. And it's hard, for me, it's hard to see much public benefit in this, this setback being slightly modified.
Yeah.
Especially since Pam and Phil and Pamela have not expressed an opinion here,
Any issues?
at least to us.
Okay. So, substantial justice is
I
approved.
Approved.
Can I weigh in one second real quick? I've talked extensively with the Masons and kept them appraised.
Yeah,
No, but I just wanted to.
I assumed as much.
Yeah, no, I just wanted.
And quite frankly, if you're not familiar, most of their garage blocks this anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so the values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. I don't see that happening. In fact, they may be improved to a certain extent anyway. So,
I agree with that.
do we have a
4-0, okay.
0? And denial of variance would result in unnecessary hardship.
Correct.
Do I have to go any further with that? So, vote on that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Am I still the secretary too?
Congratulations. And
I'm
then,
coming with a Holiday Inn proposal next time.
and so we should vote on the entire variance
Yes.
then.
So,
Yeah.
so you vote on the entire variance. So, all board members be upstanding. All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Yes.
All those in, no? No nays, okay.
Thank you.
All right, done.
Terrific. What is the procedure from here in terms of the granting of a building permit or?
You talk to the guy behind you.
I believe it's 30 days, believe it or not. It's another 30 days.
Another 30 days.
What, for somebody to appeal the decision?
Right, yeah, that's basically what it is, yeah.
It's,
Really?
well,
Yeah, but.
let me- if I could, I'll offer my opinion.
Yeah.
The selectmen or in butter, which I think there are 2, maybe 3, I guess, in Costello Village, can appeal this over the next 30 days. In which case there'd be a hearing and we'd have to do all sorts of stuff. I don't think that necessarily prohibits the issuance of a building permit. It's just that it's conceivable that if there were an appeal, then you might have to stop work or
You're
something.
proceeding at risk at that point.
Yeah,
That's all.
basically.
But, eventually, the zoning board, the ZBA has nothing to do with building permits, and it's really up to Kevin and the selectmen as to if they feel comfortable or
Sure.
not. Often, we're not talking to somebody who's anxious to get work started immediately. So as long as you understand there's a risk only from an abutter or from the selectmen, 30 days from today.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason we're very anxious to get going is we lost 6 weeks because
Yeah.
of weather.
Yeah,
And we're, quite frankly, put through the ringer relative to a sheet of this inert asbestos, a third of the size of this table, that delayed us another 3 weeks. So we've had contractors who graciously, not take another business, both local and North Conway. So I need to be able to tell them something.
So if somebody wanted to appeal it, then we'd have another meeting and decide whether or not, they would have to say that, they'd have to claim we did something wrong.
I see.
yeah.
And we'd have to then decide, do we think there's a valid point? In which case we'd have another hearing,
Yeah,
delay
we-
it further, or we just say, no, it's not a valid point.
It's not a valid point, so we're not gonna rehear it.
I see.
And then they still have the ability to
Go to
go to court. But these are all the things that could happen.
Sure.
Since this is a very controversial topic and you've got a huge room here full of people with an opinion, I wouldn't worry too much, but
So can I get a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
all in favor?
Second? Favor?
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
Much-
Let me use this one
appreciated.
last time.
Yeah. Oh, you said, yeah.
It's my croquet hammer.
James, you did very well, I thought.
Hey,
I'll
Frank.
get- I'll get
Hey,
better.
Frank, you going
Deb,
out
you
to
have a
eat?
second?
Yeah,
I'm going to the,
Thank you, Frank.
Are you?
down the street.
And
Yeah.
and
There's
there's no,
music there.
and there's no collusion.
I gotta go to eat dinner. I gotta eat dinner. Can I ride with you?
Yeah.
No collusion.
That's right.
No